Hey yo, hey, hey, be a way, oh, hey yo, hey, be a way, oh, hey yo, hey yo, hey, be a way, oh, hey yo, hey yo, remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Hello, hey, hey, be-oh, be-oh, hey-oh, hey, be-oh, be-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh, hey, be-oh, be-oh, hey-oh, remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Hey-oh, hey, hey, be-oh, be-oh, hey-oh, hey, be-oh, be-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh, hey, be-oh, be-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Hey-oh, hey, hey, be-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh, hey, be-oh, hey-oh, 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 hey, be-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Hey-oh, hey, hey, be-oh, be-oh, hey-oh, hey, be-oh, be-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh, hey, be-oh, be-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. there I will be, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Hello, hey, hey, hey-oh, 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 remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Hello, hey, hey-oh, 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 remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Hey-oh, hey, hey-oh, 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 remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand.
Allison, I think we are ready to begin.
Wonderful. Welcome. Welcome. I am Allison.
Your volume is a little bit low. I don't think we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, okay.
Great. Welcome. I am Allison Barlow. I'm representing more than 250 of our team members from the Johns Hopkins Center for American Indian Health. And we are so grateful to see hundreds of you gathered here today to learn from the great faith keeper, Oren Lyons, and his son, also a traditional knowledge carrier, Rex Lyons. To get us started in a good way, Alan Dowdy from the Allegheny Territory is here to do an opening address and song for us in Seneca. It is important to know that the opening address translates to words before all else. It is important for centering us in this very important moment today. Thank you, Alan.
So at this time, I'd like to send my greetings. Yahweh Scanat Spokwego. I'm glad everybody's in good health. And at this time, I'm going to do the Gonono, or the Thanksgiving address. I Hungaribi and T. Hengiba Jan to Ne Oindo Gaibate Go Gonono. Songwawi Songwajanum Don. How be yon Konon Kwase, Hayangwayet, Ne Yoinzagi, Dingadamani. And down the DS we hicken the Janon is God and do ya Hongwan Nigway, then do the non your hot young wheat the gi, down the hoodie, near down the Hongwan Nigway. And how be on he going out, dad and Kiaka, the younger Davania, the Ongwe. And down the DS we hicken the Janon is God and do ya Hongwan Nigway, the Tinon your Atino and the young one seat the Gasako, ne joins a di, down the hoodie, near down the Hongwan Nigway. How be your Hino yacht down, Yok Najon Zaki, Hijon Nika, and John Neho. And on the DSB Higan the Janon, this card and Doya, Hokwan Niquay, that one on your Oniki gas, on Honika Danjo, Garnica Danjo, Garnica Bones, Hioda, Dani Hodi, Neo down, Nehokwan Niquay. E. White Neho Sangwabi, Henio Hadoni, Najon Zaki. And on the DSB Higan the Janon, this card and Doya, Hokwan Niquay. That one on your had your good taki, Dani Hudi, Neo down, Nehokwan Niquan. And how be your Hio down the New York, Nijoin Zaki, and on the DSB Higan the Janon, News Card and Doya, Hokwan Niquan, that one on your had your no part seki, Dani Hudi, Neo down, Nehokwan Niquan. And how be your Himboyon Tark, Nijoin Zaki, and on the DSB Higan the Janon, News Card and Doya, Hokwan Niquan. That one on your hat your geogi, Danny Hodi, Neo down, Nehongwan Niquan. And how we yo, this look non your duck, walking no got was a come yon there, Najon Zaki. And on the DSV Higgin the Jan on these got into ya Hongwan Niquan. That one on your say sa Honjiston da set Nandaka, Danny Hodi, Neo down, Nehongwan Niquan. And how we yo, here they had on the Agni Zaki. And on the DSP, he can the Janon, he's got him to ya, Hongwan Niquan, that one on John Kahadaya, Dani Hudi, Neo down, Nehongwan Niquan. And how we yo, he can the Dongan, the Ganika, seek Najan Zaki. And on the DSP, he can the Janon, he's got him to ya, Hongwan Niquan, that one on yo, Newaka, Dani Hudi, Neo down, Nehongwan Niquan. How we all hot can you don't this, so he got the cannot seek Najan Zaki. And on the DSP, he can the channel, he's got and oh yeah, Hongwan the quaint, that was known, your hot the can you tagi. Down the hoodie, new down, Hongwan the quaint. And how we all hot can you don't this, so he cannot this and don't this, see. Down the DSP, he can the channel, he's got and oh yeah, Hongwan the quaint, that was known, your hot the tagi. Down the hoodie, new down, Hongwan the quaint. How we on Digonoxa, a young Wayetta, a young Jagi, Dugandamanji, and on the DSV Hicken the Janon, his card and Waya Hongkwan the Going, the Tinon, yo, had they one on then on the Joheko, Dani Hudi, Neo down, the Hongkwan the Going. How we on the Ebony Agni, young Jagi, down the DSV Hicken the Janon, his card and Waya Hongkwan the Going, that one on yo, the Ebony, Dani Hudi, Neo down, the Hongkwan the Going. How we yo he can't quest squad and tenant work on the sudden don a join zagi and on the DSV he can the jan on the squad and do ya Hongwan the going the eating on your tea so had they one on the jets heat not down the hoodie near down the Hongwan the going. How we yo hit can on one Andy but the haunts and the yard talk how we he joined the deep down the DSV he can the jan on the squad and do ya Hongwan the going. They said, "What no, you said what he they can't get what." Danny who did you down, they hung one, they went. How we on him what down on start, they joined Zaki. They cause a go on then, they yoke a hot hit on, they joined Zaki, you got the money. They horse a go on then, the non see, never need the danger. Dai dwe de bodon ji tati don ji ne hadik sa so ne yon zaki. And on the DSP Higgin the Janon, these God Hindu ya Hongwan ni going. Di non yo a ti so ka gakwa. Dani ho di hiu dan ne Hongwan ni going. Hawi yo hi yo just tanon ground yo tagan yo gwe go to sakanon data don ne a ti so ka gakwa. Ne he kwa o di sade don do di hate don ne yon zaki di ko da manje. And on the DSP Higgin the Janon, these God Hindu ya Hongwan ni going. That one on yo kaji son down yo. Dani ho di hiu dan ne Hongwan ni going. And on the whole no over some qua jan da dagan ji ban henio ko jan ni on we ne yon zaki di on ga da manje. Organ kai one yak san hokano hit ti yon zakwe ko. Saya da bo mo ya de ko ni an cho vi ni to ni ko de. And on the DSP Higgin the Jan on these God Hindu ya Hongwan ni going. They said but non yo said but go one and no scan da yo ha yo son Dani hudi ni da ni Hongwan ni going. Have yon gi yon gui da gi yon ki et na don ne yon zaki. Down the DSP Higgin the Jan on these God Hindu ya Hongwan ni going. Iti non yo ge yon on di hat yon ya gi on no. Dani hudi ni da ni Hongwan ni going. Have yon hit can no yon ya de ne heski John duck and joku duck but ni on the non yo ne yo zaki yon ga da wendi. And on the DSP Higgin the Jan on these God Hindu ya Hongwan ni going. They said what non yo some what jan da ani ho di ni da ne Hongwan ni going. And on the ho no ka when ni ne oin do ka yu de ko gi wa jan to ne ho ni ne ba ka ye he on ji ani ho di ni swan ni go down. So at this time I just finished the Banonyo or the Thanksgiving address, and now that our minds are as one, I'd like to share one of my earliest songs of our social dances, what we call Eskanyi Gainasi, and it goes back to the beginning of time, to our creation story. So this is what we call the New Women's Shuffle Dance, and it's in honor of all the women across the world, as we just gave thanks. So. I'm very honored to be able to do the Thanksgiving address and share a few songs. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the program.
Alan, thank you so much for that beautiful opening. It was so inspiring to us. A core mission of our Johns Hopkins Center for American Indian Health is to support Indigenous scholars. and programs with tribal partners that infuse Indigenous knowledge and direction into public health solutions. It is our belief that Indigenous value systems and principles of governance are desperately needed to heal our planet. As we find ourselves today in a global pandemic, amidst a resurgence of racial injustice and accelerating climate change, we must strive to unify and seek deeper understanding. Today, we are so honored for the great privilege to bring the guidance of faith keeper Oren Lyons and his son Rex Lyons to you. And now, appropriately, to formally introduce our presenters and our guides, I want to welcome Kaylina Bray. Kaylina is an Indigenous doctoral student supported by our center. Her thoughtful work is aimed at building and strengthening vital links between food and seed systems, local economies, and biocultural health. I also want to thank Kaylina's incredible parents, and especially David Bray, her father, who has been a great leader for our center's Native Vision program for years and years. Kaylina, thank you so much.
Thank you, Allison. That was such a beautiful introduction. And thank you to the Center for American Indian Health for hosting this event today. I can't really express how honored I feel to be able to introduce Oren and Rex Lyons today as personal leaders and personal inspiration for me and throughout my whole life and career and academic path. And I thought it was really important for Alan to bring our minds together to be able to receive these messages that are about to be shared today, because they aren't new. They've touched so many people, so many lives, global leaders across the world. And I think we're at a very important crossroads in our time today that we must listen to these messages and across these global stages that Oren and Rex have reached. The most recent one has been the lacrosse stage, and bringing these messages to the lacrosse arena, where the Iroquois Nationals, they're looking to have the team recognized at the 2028 Olympics. And that is something that Rex Lyons his leadership has been bringing that forward. And I wanted to not take up too much time, but I think I could take up the whole hour and a half, honestly, going through all of the accomplishments of Oren and Rex. I wanted to also mention that Rex is a world-class lacrosse player himself. He's a musician, and I think it's so important to have leaders who are taking on this responsibility of carrying these messages, and he's been doing that with his father, with Oren, and it's I think something that is a lifelong journey. And Oren, faith keeper of the Turtle Clan of the Onondaga Nation, he's an honorary doctor of law degree from Syracuse University, which is also his alma mater. Professor emeritus at SUNY Buffalo, All-American lacrosse player, Hall of Famer. I mean, the list just goes on. A major figure in the lacrosse world. And his lifelong work at the United Nations Permanent Forum has personally guided a lot of my journey. And it's something that I remember when I was young, my dad would be at these various conventions in Geneva or in Rio, and I would get these faxes from him. That was when faxes were a thing. And it just was something that I aspired to do one day. Oren is also an author and an artist, an exhibited artist, and has been such a personal inspiration to me. So I'm so honored and grateful to be able to introduce Oren and Rex to you all today. Now,
Thank you for that introduction, Kaylina. I want to thank Alan for bringing our hearts and minds together. And I think that was very fundamental. And it's something we're accustomed to doing before, the words before all words is to quiet ourselves so we can absorb the message that's being given. And this is part of our process. And it's been given to us, it's been going on, since our creation story, as it was mentioned earlier. We have these traditions and instructions that get passed down from generation to generation. And I wanted to kind of illustrate that. As being the son of Oren Lyons, he sets the bar pretty high, I have to say. But I'm very fortunate, and in so many ways, that I get to travel with him, and I get his personal counsel. And how many people can say that? So I'm in a very unique position here that I understand and realize that there's a reason for it. And there's a reason why I'm sitting here today, and it's to illustrate the importance of good leadership and good instruction. There was already mentioned earlier, part of the conversation is to recognize that we're in a critical time globally, as our mother, the earth, is just not doing well. And it's largely because of the behavior of the human beings and their disconnect and their unfamiliarity with the universal laws that prevail and that we all have to obey and understand. Otherwise, we're in jeopardy of making poor decisions, poor judgment that could have some severe consequences. And we're all presently experiencing that. The virus is an actual consequence of our human behavior. And there's no bargaining with it. There's no discussion with it. It just does what it does. And it's something that we should all understand, that if we don't start to change our behavior, change our direction, change our mindset and our values, we're probably not going to survive as a species. And as Kaylina said, I've had the good fortune of working with the Iroquois Nationals. I was on the first Iroquois national team back in 1983 when it was in its inception, and some humble beginnings, but it's been an extraordinary journey that I've been able to be part of this for almost 37 years, something in that realm there, and to watch us grow, and now there's 68 countries worldwide that participate in our game, our gift to the world. It's extraordinary to think about that and how powerful that is, that our brothers and sisters can participate in something that is so significant to us and so spiritually grounded. And I think that's one of the things that you'll hear again and again in this presentation, is the spiritual connection to things and understanding your context in the world and the universe and how to behave and work within the natural rhythms. It's so fundamental to us because we grow up understanding this. It's instructed. I can remember early on my father taking me hunting, and as a young boy, it was very, very exciting. But it didn't take too long for me to learn that it was nothing what I imagined, that it was a lot of work. And he was teaching me how to sit still and be quiet and pay attention and become part of the environment and open up all my senses. And this is part of the instruction we have. This is just a simple example of that, how this process works. It's a process of action. Your children do what you do. So you have to remember that whatever your behavior is, good, bad, or indifferent, your children are watching, your community is watching. It always, I remember it was a very common thing. It said it takes a village to raise a child, and I think that's something that's really lacking today in today's society. And I believe it's, has a lot to do with capitalism, colonial education, just the disconnect to being in touch with nature and understanding our responsibility to it, and not the delusional assumption of authority over it. And these things that I've learned, I'm sure, my father mentions that, from time to time, that I think he's comforted that I've been listening pretty acutely to his message, and it's firmly rooted into my spiritual center. He always talked about a spiritual center. Now, a spiritual center is something that you have confidence in, even though you're not sure what it is, how to explain it. You can't really touch it, see it, feel it, but you know it's there, and you have complete confidence and reliance upon it. And when you're in a moment of crisis, vulnerability, whatever the situation may be, you can always rely on that spiritual center to stiffen your spine, to help you get through any of those challenges. Life has a lot of challenges, and I've experienced that firsthand. And it's been quite a journey to sit here before you. I never would have scripted this for myself. You know, I was had other ideas, and fortunately, I had some extraordinary counsel. And one of the main things that I remember as a young man that we would always go round and round about were values, because I, like any other youngster that was going to school and had a television, you know, and you know, being just inundated with all this commerce and the sense of values and what the idea of success was, you know, I'm still undoing a lot of that, a lot of those things that I was taught, that I learned, that were falsehoods, that you know, that real wealth and real value, you know, it's in our greeting. Yawanascano, thank you for being well. That is the ultimate in wealth. It is your well-being. My name is Dehoy Dadi. I'm a citizen of Onondaga Nation, Eel Clan, and my name means he gets the message through. It's interesting because I work in a lot of different fields that it seems to be the case, you know, that the Creator has purpose for everyone. If you pay attention and if you follow a spiritual path, if you're fortunate enough, you discover what that is, and you get to experience that, and the extraordinary things that befall you, you know, when you get in touch with that. And I've had some extraordinary counsel and experiences because of who I am, where I've grown up, and the things that I've been so fortunate to partake in, and things that when I was a young man, I didn't know how valuable they were. I had no idea. You know, like I said, I had a lot of confusion. My mind was split, had other ideas that would, you know, that was very difficult to navigate, because they're very contrary, you know, in their essence, where in capitalism, in today's society, you're taught to look out for yourself, work hard, and you get all the trappings. You know, you're well educated, go to higher learning, and success means the big house, the family, the white picket fence, you know, and that's supposed to be some, you know, the big American dream, which is another falsehood, because there's no community out there. If you look at any of the big metropolises and all of the homelessness that's out there, you can go to Onondaga Nation, you know, where we have every economy exists there. You know, we have some people, you know, just getting by, and they're very comfortable there, but we have no homeless. Everybody has a roof over their head. You can't say that about a lot of societies and a lot of communities, and how extraordinary that is, and what a comment on our society that is, that we take care of our own no matter what. And like myself, we're always dealing with the next generation. And it's so fundamental that you have good leaders, and that you know, I think this is so poignant, because if you look, you turn on any one of those news channels, you can see the failure of that, where these so-called leaders, these political leaders, have no moral compass whatsoever. You know, they have no regard for the future. They have no regard for their behavior, the consequences of their behavior. And this is something that is very tragic when you have people that are in a position of authority and have the ability to do things both healthy and unhealthy, and they're doing things very irresponsibly, that we all, you know, fall victim to, regardless of what side of the conversation you're on. You know, this is why I think it's so timely that we're having this conversation, and I see this to be more often than not these days. Before that, you know, there was very sparse. You know, there was not too many people sitting at the table talking like this, but now I see a willingness. There's an awakening happening. If you see across, you know, the social climate of the U.S. and Canada, you know, with Black Lives Matter, social justice, inclusivity, and fairness, and trying to right the wrongs that are in place, that have been in place for a long time. And it's not an easy task, but you can see that there's change in the wind, and that there's, I say there's wind at our back that I've never experienced before, you know, and I can say that firsthand. You know, I had the privilege of playing as an athlete for the Iroquois Nationals with great pride and honor and dignity, and just how transcendent that was, to think about my ancestors who played the game before me and how they must be looking down upon the lacrosse players as I do today, you know, because when I was playing the game, you know, we were still going through our development stages and trying to, you know, secure our place in the international arena. And today we're third in the world. That's quite an accomplishment when you think about the economic, the political, the social challenges that we've had to overcome to just get to the arena, much less be competitive and be medal winners. We are second in the world in the field, in the indoor game, and third in the world in the box game. And that's an extraordinary statement on a society and the reverence we have for our game that was given to us by the Creator, and the spiritual connection. I talk to a lot of players that have experienced the same thing. Even though you may not be native and you may not have had the instruction that I've had, you experience that spiritual connection, and why it's so powerful and why it is so consuming. It's because of the spiritual origins of the game. The wooden stick, just to give you an example, the wooden stick is made from the hickory tree, and our stick makers, when they go in the woods, you know, they're looking for a certain tree. There's a dialogue, a communion that starts right from there as our stick makers look for the right trees and the right characteristics that kind of lend themselves to making a good lacrosse stick. And as the stick maker looks for these trees, he's also planting the trees as he asks the tree to give its life and sacrifice so that we could play the Creator's game for the Creator's enjoyment and for the health and wellness of the community and for the spirit and vitality of our community and of our nation. That's a mouthful. And that stick, it's all represented there in our connection to the natural world. There's no other sport like it. So there you have a stick that's made from the hickory tree, represents everything that grows on earth. This is how we think. We think in broad terms. We think in inclusive terms. We do ceremonies, and we do any kind of an event. You need to speak for everyone that might not have the good fortune of being at that circle. So this is what that stick starts to represent, everything that grows. Now in the netting, you have the sinew of the deer, which represents the animals, because the deer is the leader of all the animals, because he's on all continents. So now you have the animal kingdom that's represented in that stick. And in the netting, the actual weave, the weave that pulls the net together so you can cradle the ball, that represents the clans, the families, and the ball is the medicine. That's quite a metaphor you have, encapsulating the natural world. It encapsulates the spiritual origins. It encapsulates the community, and it's all in that stick. And how powerful that is, and what an example that is, and an instructive tool to teach our children, you know, the process and the importance of the natural world and our connection to it. But I just wanted to kind of express and show you that I'm a product of good instruction. I've been taught, I've been guided, I've been allowed to make my own mistakes, and sometimes learn the hard way, as humans can do. But I've learned that every day is a new day. It's an opportunity to do better than I did yesterday. And these are fundamental things that we can all learn from. And I just want to say that it's a privilege and an honor to be sitting here today and having this discussion with you. But I just wanted to kind of pass the baton to my father now, but to give you a little context of what we're talking about. Danito.
Yeah, good. Now discussion. Going back to the opening, Alan Dowdy did so well. And the words before all words, as he said, as an instruction to our people and our nations. First of all, it's a broad thanksgiving. What he was saying, it was a very broad thanksgiving and appreciation. It's hard to really put the correct name to it because it's so has so many dimensions to it. But fundamentally, it's a recognition of life supports. So when he was speaking, he opened with the people, for all the people and then the earth, and he was talking about the earth, and he was talking about the life that comes here, and giving a thanks for every element. He covers the animals, he covers the fish, he covers the trees and the plants, and then he moves on into the spiritual dimensions and four protectors: the thunder, the lightning, the rain. All of that was covered in his speech, and goes on. It's a recognition, thanksgiving to the earth itself. Also moves on to the moon, the sun, stars, and finally comes to the leadership of spiritual beings that protect us, support us, and ends with the thanksgiving to the Creator. And it's always been, I think, probably one of the misconceptions and misapprehensions of our brothers who came across the water, and they had a different mindset than we had here. Very, very different. And even today, we're not connecting in our observations, in our speeches, so forth. But the recognition that Alan was thanksgiving, that he was an appreciation for life, and he opened, with scano. Scano. It's an interesting word because it means, when we say Scano, which is our greeting, thank you for being well. Thank you for being well. That's our greeting. Scano. And scano, that's peace as well. So it's kind of a dual word. It includes health, well-being, and peace. And as the world's experiencing, there's not much peace without health. And that's where we are today. We're being challenged. Our health and our well-being is being challenged now by this virus. And there's more coming. This is just the opening. I would say we're in the beginning of spring of global warming, which is existential crisis we're facing as a species. But they're also, what Alan was talking about, in the beginning, you know, with the opening, and then with the Escalier, he was talking, you know, the songs for the women. And I think it's so important to have this understanding that women are fundamental to life and the female. Long ago, when all of this was being presented to the leadership, the new leadership that Peacemaker was speaking to us, and he said that the earth is female. The earth is female, and of course we always say that, Mother Earth. And that's our greeting. It's in there. So what it says, the Mother Earth. And the earth is female, he said. So therefore, he said, women will be in charge of water. Water's life. Men will be in charge of fire. And he set down these concepts and his precepts based on the natural law and the natural world. And then he, when he finally gathered the original 5 nations who were warring and fighting with each other, terrible history, times where people had forgotten their instructions, and it was in today's times, a similar situation would be Kosovo, where the fighting is internal and forever. It's, you know, you never get even. And that's what he addressed. So our confederation is based on peace. And that's first law, peace, equity, fairness to the people, unity, to be united, to be of one mind. We use that all the time. The good minds, one mind, to be of one mind, the collectivity, the strength that's there in unity. And as Alan was giving his opening address, behind him on the wall was, you could quite not see it, but just half of it was what we call the Hiawatha Belt. The Union Belt was back there. And the 5 original nations, starting with the East and the Mohawks, and then the next nation was the Oneida Nation, next one was Onondaga, and then moving west was the Cayuga, and then the Seneca. It's on the western door. And that belt was on, the picture of that belt was up there, the Union Belt. But in the center, Onondaga, is a tree. It's a tree, and it's white. It's peace. And the disservice that's been done to the Haudenosaunee, calling us warlike and calling us fierce and calling us the great fighters. Well, I'll tell you, when somebody comes in your house, you're going to stand and fight. I don't care who you are. You get an intruder coming into your house, you're going to stand and fight. And that's what we did, because we had a great intrusion coming from Europe. And we stood our ground. But that our base was peace. And so a great disservice to our people has been this story about the fierce Iroquois. French call us Iroquois. The British call us 6 Nations. And our proper name is Haudenosaunee. So what I say now is just in that opening address that Alan was doing, there was so much instruction, and we're instructed every meeting, big or small, you do that opening, every meeting, wherever it is, and that's what we do. every day. So you're reminded of the earth, everything around you, and your thanksgiving to that. And our brothers from across the water, they misunderstood that. They said we worship animals. They said we worship. They have no comprehension of how broad our perspective was. And we weren't worshiping animals. We were being thankful. We were appreciating. It's not a worship. You know, the peacemaker had instructed us in every day or every meeting. He said, this is the way your open goes. So he said the earth is female, and therefore our system, our political system of the Haudenosaunee was going to be matrilineal, not matriarchal. You know, as I learned as a professor, the importance of words and the difference of the English words and how one little change can really make big difference. We didn't know that, you know. We didn't understand the complexity of that language. Our language is more straightforward. You can't have double or triple meanings in our language. Pretty straightforward what you're saying. And so we began to understand now when our brothers came across the water and they first landed, they looked different. They had a lot of hair on them, on their face, and they were white. And so that was how we described them. And then later on, they brought the black people. And so we described them. And so with the white people, we said, Hassani for women, Hassani for the men. They're white. It's descriptive. By the time they colonized and got all the way into Lakota country, I heard the Lakotas, you know, when they were speaking about the Washichu. That's their description. So I asked them, I said, well, what does that mean, Washichu? And they said, he eats all the fat. So from the time that we first saw him, he was white. It was different. That's how our description was. By the time he got into the mid-country here, we understood he was also different than that. He eats all the fat. So you live and learn. It took us a long time. Our word was our bond. We didn't have to write something. We didn't have to sign anything. You gave your word. That was it. That was it. Your word was your bond. You die by it. And then what we learned, of course, from our brothers across the water was you better get it in writing. You better get it stamped and authorized and witnessed on top of it, because you can't trust what he said. So we had a very different style of speaking and life. And I don't want to go into all of that except to say that the early years that was the so-called development of this country when he landed over 500 years ago, the land was pristine here. Everything was clean. Trees were big. Animals were free. Everything was beautiful. The plains was full of antelope, buffaloes. It was like the Serengeti of Africa. It was like that here, just loaded with animal life and food. And now it's gone. And the 500 years, or what we call 5 days, you've only been here 5 days and we're in serious trouble here. Question of survival as a species is pointed out by Rex. We're looking at extinction of ourselves. And so in those early years, as they were learning from us, the Haudenosaunee had a huge influence in the politics of our brother. And I would say in the 1700s, all business in the Northeast was conducted according to the rules and systems of the Haudenosaunee. And that finally, you came to the conclusion you're going to have a revolution. They were going to have a fight with your father, 1775. And we have been mentors, actually. There was a meeting in Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 1744, a treaty meeting, and the Six Nations was presiding over all these meetings, no matter where they were. If our leaders weren't there, you didn't have a meeting. And so this huge meeting, and the colonies were fighting one another, arguing. And one of our Onondaga chiefs said to them at that time, look, he said, you have to learn how to get along together. He says, work together. He said, why don't you make a union like ours? Look how respected we are. Look how strong our union is, and so forth and so on. He went on to instruct them to work together. And so 1775, some years later, moving to the War of Independence, they called it. And there was a meeting called in Lancaster, or called in Albany, New York, 1775, and it was a big meeting. The Continental Congress was there, all of them. They want to meet with the Six Nations. And so our leaders got there, and they asked us, they said, they laid down, they said that we're getting ready to stand up for ourselves. Our father's not treating us right. And they went on to lay out a litany of bad performances against them. So they asked us, our leaders, would you join us in this battle? And the chiefs at that time said, well, we know your father. Matter of fact, I've been just meeting with him this spring. Oh, they said, well, what is he talking about? They said, pretty much what you're talking about. They could see this problem was coming. There's going to be a fight. And in our discussions, we saw this as a fight between father and son. So this is a discussion taking place in 1775 in Albany, New York, with the Continental Congress and the Six Nations chiefs, and a big consortium of our leaders there, some from other nations. And they said, well, they said, if you're not gonna fight with us, don't fight against us. That was the second position. And our leader said, well, that's the position we're going to take. We see this fight between father and son. We know both of you. You're going to have to settle this. And we'll stand back. We'll stand aside. So a treaty was made, a treaty of neutrality in 1775, which our leaders said, you will not see the Confederacy fight on either side for either. You will not see the nations of our Confederacy fight, but you will see our men in the field on both sides because some of our minds are split like yours. But when you see our men in the field on either side understand they're there on their own, they're not representing the nation, nor are they representing the Confederacy. And that's how that agreement went in 1775. So a treaty of neutrality. And fast forward to the importance of that as in 1983. In 1983, the President of the United States was re-energizing the draft. That was President Reagan. And he was energizing the draft, re-energizing the draft system. And our men were getting notices because a lot of times we put the address of Metro New York. You don't know whether they're Indian or not. Anyway, they start bringing the notices to the council, and we said, yes, tell everybody bring their notice. Don't ignore it. And we would answer the letter saying that this person was not eligible for the draft. And so this went on for a while, and then we got a call from the Selective Service and the federal government. Can we have a meeting on this issue? We know, they said, we know it's not new. We know your position is not new, but we don't know where does it come from? What is it? And we would like to understand that. And so we set a meeting up in 1983 on Mother's Day and here comes the federal government to Onondaga Nation, limousines and people in suits and so forth, and big meeting. And we were prepared. We had our speakers lined up. We had the belts laid down. We had the 2-row belt. We had all the treaty belts lined up. And we had speakers behind each one. And that treaty of 1775. And so we went through. And the first thing they said was, well, we have a complaint here. You called a meeting on Mother's Day. And we said to them, every day is Mother's Day. So it's just like any other day, but you should be thankful to your mother. And so we went through the history. And by the time we got into the War of 1812, they said, okay. We asked the question, you answered the question, and we will not draft your men. And we said, that's according to treaty. So those treaties are real. And if you're going back from 1775 to 1983, and the treaty still stands, and the United States honors it, and there's many more treaties like that. Over 765 treaties, more than that, agreements that have been made with our people, dishonored most of them, but they're there. And in 2016, we were invited to the White House. The Haudenosaunee was invited to the White House to renew our 1774 Treaty of Peace and Friendship. That's just 4 years ago. So these treaties are real, and our stand is that we are citizens of Haudenosaunee, and to keep the integrity of the treaty, that's who we will remain to be. And over the period of that time and so forth, a lot has taken place, and a lot of American Indians now call themselves American citizens. So that's, that's their right to do what they want to do. But Six Nations has held that position back. So no, we're citizens of the Haudenosaunee, and to keep the integrity of those agreements, we must maintain our identity. We're not saying that being an American citizen is bad. We're just simply saying it's important for us to maintain our identity, and important for you to recognize that. So treaties, yes, treaties are important. And I think this problem that we face today now with the pandemics and so forth, the virus doesn't recognize any treaty whatsoever. It doesn't recognize borders. It doesn't recognize anything except a population to feed on. And since we are a species, we're vulnerable to it, and now we're experiencing that, and we are now in our prophecies coming into. We are in the time of prophecies right now, according to our prophecies. So there's more to come, and it doesn't end well. I'll say that. It doesn't end well. And when Ganyandayo, who was a Seneca chief, was given this instruction in 1799, when he heard these prophecies, and they said, okay, now we brought you here to instruct you to be able to maintain yourself. We didn't give you enough instructions for your brother. Now we're giving you these instructions. And here we'll give you a view of the future. So he saw the prophecies. That's what we call a prophecy. He saw what was coming. And it doesn't end well, as I said. So he said to them at that time, he said, well, this is going to happen? They said, yes, it will. He said, well, if that's the case, he says, now this is 1799, where the trees are still big here, where the water is still pure, where, land is fairly well in good condition. Animals are still here. And the Seneca leader is hearing this prophecy. He said, well, he said, if that's the case, he said, then what's the use? And this is important. This is important. They said to him, they said, you tell your people, your relatives, your friends, everyone you know, all nations, all people, that the generation that allows this to happen will suffer beyond all comprehension. And you tell your people, your relatives, and your nations, your leaders, and your friends, you tell all the people, do not let it be your generation. So there it is. It's an instruction, it's a battle cry, and it's saying you have to stand and fight for the welfare of the earth. Basically, that's what we're talking about right now. This civilization has been nothing but plundering the earth, digging, mining, taking oil, and very destructive. Well, we're going to have to find different ways. So what I would say is that it's important in your mission to instruct your leaders, your people, to change their habits, to be thankful, to protect the natural world. Nature is us. Nature isn't over there. We're part of nature. We're flesh, bone, and blood like all the animals. And the only thing we have different is our intellect. And we're not using that very well at the moment. So if you look at the large picture of economy, the biggest driving economy in the world, the whole world right now, is the sale of arms. If you're going to talk peace and you're selling arms as your major resource, something's not right. All right. The sale of arms around the world. That's the number one seller of arms here, USA. Russia right behind them. China right there coming. China's going to try to catch up. But to what end? To what end? Peace is much better. Disarm. Put your arms down. Put the guns down. That's the message. Peace. The great tree of peace. That great white pine. 4 white roots of peace in 4 directions. That's what it was all about. And so the sale of arms. Now, the second largest economy in the world is the sale of drugs. And so, and you don't see that money. That goes into a dark hole. The sale of drugs. That's like a left jab and a right cross. Bang, bang. To all your children, the future. Sale of arms. So somehow or other, we're going to have to reach an agreement to put down your guns and as a species, sit down and counsel for the welfare of the whole earth. We're facing a global problem and has to be a global solution. You can't fix one side of it. It's global. So that's where we are right now. And I think your organization and your messages have to go out in that direction. I think that your mission is peace, welfare of the life itself, defend the earth, our mother, and pay attention to what our leaders said back there. And they said, we want to make a union like yours, 1775. And of course, the big question right there was, well, if you can make a union like ours, where's the women? And of course, you can't have slaves. That's not like a union like ours. There's no slavery in there. But that's the way it went on. And we're now looking at the consequence of that. So also the union like ours is based on peace, equity to share. And somehow, you've twisted that word, the English word share, in our context means to share what you have, whatever it be, food, whatever, share. In the context of economy, it means to buy a part of something, to switch the word right around completely. Share means 2 different things. A share of wealth or share the wealth. So these are just fundamental observations. I don't know. It's done well for us. We've survived up to this point, and I think it's good counsel. But that determination has to be made by the world leaders and your leaders, and the people have to become involved in decision making, and that's what you're doing right now. That's your effort. I commend you and your effort to do good, to help take care of our children, carry these principles of peace, equity, to be fair, to share. And I would say there's not much not many Native people left here. We have experienced genocide. We've experienced there's a fierce history. It's killed our people. Has to be looked at, has to be understood. The truth has to be told. If you're going to continue on, you can't continue on until you know all the truths and what's right. Now, I just happen to be 90 years old. I'm not brilliant. I accepted a responsibility to work with the council way back 55 years ago. And nothing exceptional about me except I lived to be old. You get a little experience. I was a lot, the older you get, the more you realize how little you know. There's so much to know. And I've tried to honor the promise I made to work for the nation. And the men that joined me at that time, Chief Paulus, Irving Paulus Jr., Paul Waterman, William Lazar, they passed on now, but they were working hard to the end. And that's where we are today. So I would urge you to think about what we're talking about and think about the principles. How do we adjust the principles and how to tell the true history of this land? Because, and watching this Black Lives Matter, slaves didn't get here until you had almost killed all our people. So that's has to be addressed. What has to be addressed is what happened to the indigenous people of this land. And it's a terrible history, but nevertheless, you can't move forward without addressing it. What happened to 16 million people? 16 million. There was a census of Native people in the United States in 1900, and they said there was around 250,000 Native people left in 1900. So the question is, what happened to 16 million people that were here at the landfall of Columbus? That has to be addressed. The original people of this land. If you go out to South Dakota and witness how poor those people are, destitute. These are the original people of the land. Not many. They put us all together. I think they're counting around 2 million now. But you should be, this idea of reservations and so forth. I don't know. It's a huge injustice. And until the United States addresses the genocide they visited upon our people, you can't progress. So those are just opening statements, opening thoughts. There's so much more. But I think this is common cause now. We're a human species. We come in all colors, all sizes, but we're all native beings. We're all a species, as was pointed out. We can change blood. And you can change blood whether you're black, white, yellow, or green, or whatever color. Then you're one family. And so we have to treat each other as one family. And that'd be a first step. Equity, peace. So let's carry on from there. That's the opening statement.
I'd like to just circle back on something. I have something, this is where I do a lot of my work and my Zoom meetings, and I have something right here that keeps me on track here. I don't know if you can see this here. It's the picture of my granddaughter in her regalia. Name's Achista Hawis. She's 5 years old, and I fear for her future. You know, so when we talk about taking responsibility for the future and don't let it be your generation, I feel like it's our generation. I really feel this. We're at a tipping point. Which way is it going to go? It seems like if the will is to keep going, we'll prevail. But if we don't show up in force, we won't prevail. And I suggest if you have something to keep you focused, something besides yourself that's what you're responsible to and for, it'll help you in your decision making, and it'll help stiffen your spine and strengthen your will when it becomes very heavy and you seem to be fighting a lost cause. You can't give up. That's one thing I've learned. We never give up. You never take hope from the people. And I just want to illustrate how important it is that you put good leaders where they need to be. As you can see what happened in the past 4 years, things unraveled pretty severely when that wasn't done. People are pretty polarized. It's going to be hard to repair that.
There was one important instruction that we received from the peacemaker when they organized and adjudicated the leadership between the men and the women fairly. He said to us, when you sit and you counsel for the welfare of the people, he said, think not of yourself, nor of your family, nor even your generation. He said, make your decisions on behalf of those generations coming. Those faces looking up from the earth, each awaiting its time. All those generations depended upon us. 7 generations. So the long-term vision of looking out for 7 generations ahead will give you peace yourself. Because there's only one way you're going to get 7 generations out there, let's be peaceful. So pretty fundamental instruction. Adults have to act like adults, take responsibility. And Rex was pointing out, he's looking at his granddaughters. That's my great-granddaughters. Just the Howies, Ganyan 2 of them. They're just little kids now. They're just like 5 and 3, I think.
Yeah.
5 and 3. And their future and their children's future. That's what we're looking at. So the long perspective, it means that we have to learn how to share. So I think a reflection on those words, 7 generations, that's our responsibility. 7 generations ago, somebody was looking out for us. That's why I'm here. Somebody was looking out for me. Okay, what about 7 generations from now? That's our responsibility.
Thank you so much, Oren and Rex, for this guidance and this instruction and inspiration for us to not be the generation, for us to not be the generation that ruins all life for all life to come, but to be the generation that stands up with courage and unity, to be the generation that makes a shift. And you inspire us that we have what we need to do this. But now we must stiffen our spines and strengthen our will. So we're so grateful for that instruction. Our Johns Hopkins Center for American Indian Health is here for a resource for those of you who are here today. If there are ways that we can help advance your vision for how we make a healthier world, please contact us. We are so grateful for the hundreds of people who came today. It gives us such hope. It gives us hope for our future. And we all now share this instruction to go forward. If you need to find our center, Anna, why don't you put in the chat our website and information to contact us, but please let us be a resource. Wishing everyone Scano, health, peace, well-being, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts to Rex and Oren for being with us and being so truthful and helpful. Thank you.
I would like to add contemporary thought here. You know, people are amazing in their abilities. I'm always surprised. And you had a great baseball player for the New York Yankees. His name was Yogi Berra. And Yogi Berra used to make these observations. He had some very amazing observations he has to make, you know. Like for instance, he says, well, when you come to the fork in the road, he says, take it. and then he said later on, he says, well, it ain't over till it's over. So I'm going to take Yogi at his word right there. It ain't over till it's over. And it ain't over. So we're in it full on. I'm with you guys. I heard you on. And it's a good fight.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. I think with that, we're going to wrap up. Our contact information for our center is in the chat. You can also reach out to us through the email link that you used to access the call today. And if you have any questions, we would be happy to answer those via email. Thank you so much.